two for me, and I always have to put the.
Oh,
string keys on.
it never does any of them. So,
Hmm.
all right, we're getting ready to go live. So then I've got to like how Travis calls me out every time. Yes, Mr. Balga says I have to do this before starting the show. And are you set up for recording on your end?
No, but I can be.
Okay,
Hold on
yeah,
one
that'd be
second.
great because I got to send this to Travis. All right, so let me.
All right, cool. I'm good. You just let me know whenever you need me to record.
All right, I will. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna tweet out a bunch of stuff first.
Okay.
All right. So got that. I got to. Last time I was hearing myself speak, and I said, "Oh, I got to mute myself." All right, that's.
Tell me, you got to mute the YouTube.
Yeah, the
like
YouTube.
Viewing
Yeah,
of YouTube.
so, yeah. And then I got to join it. This is why I like Travis doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about this.
Oh, I hear you. I'm just so used to it now, man.
Now I mean, I've done a lot better than the first time I did this. So, all right. So now I'm gonna put this. All right. So, retweet. Put it in the group chat. Put this in the other group chat. I like Katie's question already. She said her first question. I asked a question. She wants to know wine. Wants to know good wine. All right. So
any cab.
I've got a Malbec I really like.
Ooh, I like a good Malbec too. Yeah. I really like anything red, to be truly honest with you.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to load it up on my second screen. You had a good show last night with Travis.
Thanks, man. Fan interaction always helps.
Yeah, you guys had a decent amount. I stayed in for a little bit, but then wife wanted to watch Schitt's Creek, so I had to.
What a great show! I love that show.
Oh yeah, we've got 2 more seasons left.
I thought that the guy who plays the son in that would have been a perfect Riddler.
Oh yeah, Eugene Levy's son. Yeah,
mm-hmm. That's his actual son.
Yep, that's his actual son, and the waitress is his actual daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yep. He would play a great Riddler though.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's see if Mr. Snell's got anything left for us. Like I said, he's got the invite. He's got that. So he said he's going to try to join us to do the Moon Knight. He knows Moon Knight's up front. So, all right. So let's see. He's got that. Got that. He said I'll likely be on right after the plugs and get set up now. Not sure how I'll sound with the headphone mic, but it won't be too long. Okay. Cool. All right. So if you are ready to go,
I'm ready, buddy.
Make sure I got my stuff pulled up to record because that would be the worst thing in the world. I have the problem since doing this every week. I sometimes forget how to do plugging World's Finest True Believer doing the intro because when I do it, I'll start getting ready to do the Marvel Alliance intro, and I was like, "Oh, get for myself."
Yep, I've done it before. Yep, I've definitely done it before.
All right. So if you are good, I'm going to do a countdown to 3, 2, 1, and then a little break, and then I'll do the intro.
Okay. When do you want me to hit record on my end?
When I say 3, 2, 1, record.
Okay.
And doing a record, and then don't worry if we can't do the alliance together. We'll do our best.
I'll try. Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Negative Zone to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. My name is the Uncanny Chris.
And I am the Incorruptible Greg.
Alliance assemble. Well, universes collide. Crossovers have happened. We have now initiated a Marvel DC crossover. Welcome, our DC Alliance brethren host, Greg. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I even wore my Captain Marvel shirt today. See?
Look at that.
Just for Marvel. Just for
I have to, next time I come on, I got to make sure to do something DC related at that point. Look at that.
You can't even see it unless I lift myself up for it because I guess I could put my camera down. But yeah, dude, I still love Marvel. I noticed that lately I've been paying a lot less attention to Marvel. One, because you guys have this show, so I can pretty much get everything I need.
Mm-hmm.
And two, just focusing so much on DC for really everything I'm doing has some kind of main focus on DC or and Star Wars too, I guess. So like just Marvel's just been kind of in the wayside. Plus, they hadn't had a lot of huge. I guess we haven't had movies come out lately.
Whoa. Well, we haven't had movies. No,
I don't want to say news.
movies.
They have had some big news, but we just haven't movies come out lately. So I just kind of, I had Endgame, and I'm just kind of right. And I guess Spider-Man came out after that. Yeah, but
well, we differ on the amount of news. Snell and I will differ on what we consider news. This, in my opinion, is some big news at this point. But look who's made a surprise appearance!
How do I hold this?
Yeah, enjoy that hair.
Yeah,
my co-host.
We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I apologize to listeners. I don't know how I'll sound. I've made a thing just to call in. I'm literally at work right now. I've saved my lunch break 2 hours late, and I saved it for this.
Oh, good. Well, you just joined us right in time. I appreciate it. I know this was the thing we were fearing. The news of this illustrious casting was not going to go without your input. So I'm going to very, very quickly go through the network plugs. All right, so we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. Every single day of the week, we got you covered with anything geek and nerd. On Mondays, we got my show, World's Finest True Believers. On Tuesdays, we've got DC Alliance, hosted by Greg and Travis Hines. Yeah. On Wednesday, we've got this show, which you're either watching live on Tuesday night or listening on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, it's Katie's Day, as usual. And going bi-weekly with 2 shows, the sexiest of all weeklies, contractually obligated to say that per Nathan. And we've got Slice of Film, and then we've got Star Wars Alliance. We're getting some differences going on with the schedule, so make sure you're paying attention to the feed with those drops. Mandalorian is happening this week, so the first recordings of that's going to be happening on Sunday, so be on the lookout for that. And then on Fridays, we got a double header with superhero discussions with Travis and Greg, looking at everything in the animated superhero universes. And then on Friday nights live, we got Super Civil Servants podcast with all the main hosts of Geek Ultimate Alliance, looking at everything going on in the week of geek. So that is live on Fridays. Audio drops on Saturdays, and on Saturday and Sunday we have Weird Science comic rundown with Jim, looking at DC on Saturdays and Marvel on Sundays. And we have our new show officially dropping on Sunday, Ranger Alliance, hosted by Clay, Joe.
No S.
What?
No S.
Ranger.
Yeah, no, Ranger Alliance. Yes, Ranger Alliance.
Put an A at the end, say Ranger.
It's a joke. It's a joke for Clay, because when I sent him the logo, it was Rangers Alliance. He's like, could I request something? And I went, oh, sure.
Yes, Ranger Alliance, hosted by Clay, Joe, and Tony. So that officially joins the network, dropping the first episode on this coming Sunday, November 1st. And as the schedule will go, it will continue dropping on Sundays until my retros run out sometime early next year. Once those run out, it will take over where the retros did, and giving me a break, giving World's Finest the break. Synergy that I need at that point.
Needed break, though.
Yes, a much needed break, but World's Finest will still be on the Mondays. It'll just now be new episodes only, with the off weeks being Ranger Alliance. So all right. And then also we've got a Patreon. $1 gives us it says you like us, you love us, you want to show us the support. Yes, some more of us. $5, we've got a whole bunch of stuff for you. We've got every single episode dropping ad free. We've got early access to episodes like Superhero Discussions, World's Finest True Believers, Slice of Film, Star Wars Alliance dropping early. We've also got exclusive episodes. We've got top 10 lists. We've got different kinds of early discussions. We've got the amalgam chats. We will be recording an amalgam chat this Thursday night. Greg, are you officially joining Travis, Hines, and myself?
I believe so, if it's going to be the evening.
Yep, it's going to be the evening. So we will be dropping that hopefully in your feeds by hopefully Halloween. We will drop that at that point. So we'll have our third amalgam checks just by the nick of time, dropping it for that monthly obligation. So we're looking forward
and
to
to make it better in the future, because if I can't be nights, but even then because we have so many hosts now, the plan is maybe to do multiple months. So maybe you'll get one at the start, one, and this is no promise. The minimum's always one, but we've talked about before, like I'd even like to do a solo one with me and Katie talking about Marvel versus Star Wars, because we have lots of things to discuss, and I think we could fill an hour just ourselves. I know even before Greg was going to come on, you're like, oh, you and Heinz could do one. So that's where in the future you'll see a bit more. Maybe they're bite-sized, maybe they're like half an hour, maybe it's one topic, but we do want to do more of those because they're, one, good for the patrons, but two, they're just honestly fun, because I feel like we have conversations that we don't have on the news feed because we move along and stuff, but it's definitely just like chasing a squirrel for an hour, but that leads some of the best conversations.
It definitely does. So so we got the Patreon, and then we got the big celebration 24-hour charity stream going on November 7th, Geekverse, to support the BC Children's Hospital. At that point, great cause. The goal is to raise $1,500 to shave my co-host lovely locks. I think the next level is 1,700, and Clay also will shave his lovely locks. And what is your level there, Greg, to shave your beard?
I think I said 2,000, but I can't remember. So
okay.
200. 200.
Oh, there we go.
40 away. I'm just kidding. So that's a stretch goal. You and Clay both said at $2,000 you do that. So the main goal is 15, but
who knew we were doing a Kickstarter, right?
Somebody needs to shave their eyebrows for 25. I know
absolutely not
Katie.
Looking at me.
No.
Katie, what's up? Shave your eyebrows for 25.
I think that's a $10,000 one.
I think Katie would say that's a hell no, but you know. But Super Civil Servants and Geekverse will be facing each other down in the trivia to end all trivia fights. We need to have some sort of, besides just bragging rights, we'll need to get some sort of belt mailed down to the U.S. because Super Civil Servants will probably be taking that pretty handedly. So,
is that making your claim there, Sting?
I'm just stating, probably.
I'm just stating just some facts on that one, but you never know.
I don't know. Greg can barely keep his team apart. You're in the chat talking about, I don't know where I joined. 2 weeks in a row. He's called Travis Hines, Travis Snell. He's, he may or may not have made a certain ruling about this game. I'm telling you that every week that you guys can trash talk, and I have a trash talk video coming at you, but like, you guys are just falling more and more apart, and we're just going to come and pick up the bones. We don't need
that's what we want to portray to you. That's what we want to. You think we're
we don't
weak.
need to beat you when you guys beat yourselves.
Well, I did make a slight mistake. We have our other, I'll be like Greg in this one. I made a slight mistake with Heinz being being in Canada, so we have to send we'll have to send a big belt to him.
Wow.
A massive belt.
No.
Just
we're gonna do a
huge
timeshare
belt.
with it.
No. He will get a huge belt. For being
Heinz,
the
they had
Canadian.
to walk that back. Heinz. They weren't even going to share any winnings with you. Like, just classic American.
We didn't say we were going to share it with him. We just forgot he lived, 2,000, 4,000 miles away.
He's the American. He's the American brother we all want.
We'll see. But that's happening November 7th. Lots of fun. There's lots of other events, and a big shout out to all the hosts. I'm going to tweet about it too, because I've just been super busy working 11, 12-hour day, so it's great, not least. But a shout out to Brent and Ray, who on fans shouted it out and talked about it a little bit. It was a fun conversation. Check out their show. Check out DC's Film Squadcast as well, because Scott's hosting, and that was a good episode this week. But just a big shout out to those guys.
And who's our Star Wars commentator?
Tyler Bucks. He's not anyone that I don't think you guys know. Me and GV have worked with him a few times. He's on Chatter Squadron. He runs like this conglomerate of Facebook Star Wars pages that are pretty massive and whatnot. And he's a really funny guy. And he's kind of told me that he might be doing quotes instead of trivia questions, or at least have some quotes. So that's what we don't know what these hosts are doing. Like they all have different methods of how they're going to be questioning us. And I'm going to be honest, it's all trash talk. It's all fun. But the way these guys are talking so far, I am pretty scared when they're talking about certain films. I'm not going to say which ones, but certain films where I'm like, I'm not going to get anything of that. So, we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be tons of fun.
The writer, as it were, the writer.
Maybe, maybe not. But either way, we'll stomp the floor with you guys, and you guys will be waving at Canada.
Well, it's all been good fun, but yes, my alliance has been with Super Civil Servants, so never was in doubt. It's fun, but Greg and I have come to understandings at that point. So yes,
you're on the wrong side of history.
Well,
it wouldn't be the first time, but you know what? I aim to misbehave.
That's right. That's right. If we lose, we'll do that together too. That's the thing. So
God willing, if anyone caught that reference.
The thing about this trivia that I haven't really started to think about until now, like not now, but like as of recently, is I started thinking about the people we have hosting that are going to be asking the questions, and I was like, oh crap, like these guys are really knowledgeable. I didn't even think about that. I thought about them as friends, people I've podcasted with or listened to their podcast. I didn't really think about like just said any of the day. I was like, wow. I was like, because I know that I am not nearly as knowledgeable as them. But when I'm pulling stuff up, I can pull stuff up. That's pretty knowledgeable, So when I'm making questions, they're probably not going to pull a lot of stuff up. They can probably just wing a few. I'm sure they're going to look stuff up, but I'm sure they can just wing a few questions that'll be humdingers.
Oh yeah, well, in our Marvel chat, Brent, definitely in our conversation, somehow our conversation led to him developing a question, but we don't know what that question is, nor am I getting any hints at it, nor do I want any. So it's gonna be fun. I look forward to the challenge. So, all right, well, we don't know how long we have Mr. Snell for, so let's get to it. We have two big main topics, but the biggest one we're leading first, as unfortunately we predicted, is that the casting of Moon Knight has been settled, at least according to Deadline, with both of these big Moon Knight news. Deadline reported yesterday that with the Star Wars franchise now officially coming to an end for this actor's commitment, Oscar Isaac has now been cast, according to Deadline, to join the MCU's presentation of Moon Knight on Disney Plus. So we've got a few things that we're already thinking. Jeremy Slater, who developed and wrote the Netflix comic book adaptation of Umbrella Academy, has been tapped as to develop and lead the writing team of the series for the streamer. For those that don't know, as familiar as Mr. Snell is, and Snell definitely can take me to task probably on Moon Knight, but I definitely know enough. But Moon Knight, for those that don't know, he's known as Mark Spector. He's a mercenary that has several alter egos, Cabby Jake Lackley and millionaires Playboy Stephen Grant, in order to fight crime and in order to fight the criminal underworld. But later he was established as a conduit for the Egyptian moon god Khushu, if I'm saying that right. I never get that
something
right.
like that. We'll know once we get to live action.
Yes, Khonshu.
Right. Khonshu, I think.
Khonshu, yes, Khonshu. There we go.
Khonshu.
Yeah. Most recently, the character was a consultant who dressed in all white and goes by the name of Mr. Knight, and he is very classy looking in that new presentation. So, Mr. Snell, Travis, my co-host, I believe you called this a year or so ago.
Yeah, so it's funny. Every once in a while, Geekverse, we do like these fan drafts and fantasy casts and whatnot. And we did that a year ago because that was after the presentation and they had announced, okay, these are the Disney Plus lineup. So we did that for all that. And he's somebody that I wanted for a while. As I've made the joke before, I always wanted Adam Driver, but then I found out he wasn't Jewish. So I'm like, okay, well, that's the, like I said, just because you play Jewish on TV or movies doesn't mean that. So I just assumed it for years. But then when it wasn't that, I'm like, okay, who could think? And then I thought of him like, oh, I wonder. And then I looked it up, did the research, and I am just beyond thrilled about this because obviously there's been tons of rumors. There's been Keanu, there's been Nick Kroll, lots of things that have made me worried. As far as the actual show, we still don't have too many details as far as plot. So there's lots of routes they can go with Moon Knight, but this is just perfect. And that's why the reason I said this a year ago is just because whether it is just he's pretending to be these characters or it is for split personality, you need someone that is an actor's actor. You need somebody that can play these different personalities. And this is why you can look at my Twitter news feed as far as that I shared, but then also I shared this thing where these 4 images of him in different roles. And you look at him, he's just a chameleon of an actor. Like Mark Spector / Moon Knight is a guy who's like kind of not deranged, but he has lost his mind and he is just trying, he's literally lost and he's just trying to figure it all out. Stephen Grant is a playboy Bruce Wayne type, and then Jake Lockley is like a on the streets, kind of dirty, like kind of foul mouthed, like everyday sort of chap. So it's like you need someone with a lot of versatility. and I think he just will excel at this. I was surprised. He was my pick a year ago, but I had written him off for a while because after Rise of Skywalker, I know we talked about this with Brent, that I was in our private chat that I just thought he was done with maybe big franchise overall. He seemed pretty down. Like anytime they suggest more of Poe, more of Star Wars, Disney Plus, he was like, no. And it wasn't even felt like in a joking way. It was
Money
just, no, I don't
talks,
want to do
buddy.
this. Well, money
talks.
It does. And that's where but I do think it also is something about this script. Now, you never know. There's been actors. He was also in Apocalypse, right? And that wasn't a great movie, but there's something in the inception, at least they came to him and they said, you know what, this is worth it. And my last 2 points before I throw to you guys is, one, I think that we've already seen it. We've talked about this before. I'm not too interested in the talking about how Jewish is he. I'm not a fan of this conversation already because people be like, well, look, he was raised Christian. And it's like, unless you know Oscar Isaac or you've seen him made any demeaning remarks against the Jewish community, we don't know his life. None of us know him personally. We don't know his religion, even in some of these articles. And there's been blips of just like over the years of small things he said he didn't agree with them. We don't know where he goes in that. So again, we kind of seen that with Ruby Rose. We've seen that with other people where it's like, you're not blank enough. And I just hate that conversation. I think it really paints some people in a negative way because I think it's not lucky, but it's a good thing because 10 years ago, if Moon Knight got cast, there's a chance they wouldn't even go for someone Jewish. They'd say, oh, he's Jewish. And so, oh, that doesn't matter. We don't care. We're just going to get whoever. So I think it was good that we got that. We got a phenomenal actor. And this is what I was going to ask you guys. For Marvel and DC, as far as TV shows, not the movies, TV shows, can you name like a bigger casting than this as far as an actor jumping on? Because like Haley Steinfeld is a big star, but she hasn't been in Star Wars. She hasn't been in all these films. And I've been trying to think of other people like Tatiana, who's She-Hulk. Like she's a bigger star in The Rise, but I've been trying to think even with DC as far as like Ruby Rose was
Joel
a good
McHale, maybe.
But I don't know if but that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if there's anybody that matches Oscar Isaac. I think Joel McHale.
I would say Benedict Cumberbatch definitely was a big get at that point, you know.
But just for TV, I mean,
just for TV at this point.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about for TV. Okay. That's where I think he's right with Joe McHale DC. I've tried to think of other ones, and there's been like legacy castings like Mark Hamill, but I mean like someone like current. They're a big star right now because I think it's pretty telling that with Moon Knight, this very undernamed character, they're getting an A-tier talent right here.
Oh, Samuel L. Jackson technically, then coming back for next year.
You're gonna count Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Come on.
Well, no, not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm talking about the streaming show based around him at that point. Him just coming back to the character.
Okay, yeah, I guess I should phrase it as like someone that's just newly cast because you have Jeremy Renner, right? Like he's coming back. You have like Anthony Mackie is like, I don't know if he's as big as those guys, but that's, I mean, like newly cast right off the bat. Like you're right. There's definitely people that have come. Same thing as like we're getting the Gotham series from HBO Max. So you'll have, so like you could see Robert Pattinson that, but I mean like to start off, that's why I've been trying to think about all day and it's crazy.
I mean, Fanboy Clay brings up in the chat, you know, Henry Cavill in The Witcher. Also, I could think of Anthony Hopkins being in Westworld. You know, that's
oh yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, again, just Marvel DC.
Just Marvel DC. Okay,
yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, like I'm not saying Anthony Hopkins is nobody.
No, I didn't think you were at that point. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, there are levels of tiers at that point, and we kind of point out like when they're already been cast, the newer casting. I think you have a point is people that weren't already connected to the MCU. Yes, they're definitely getting. I mean, it's huge, especially. You know, I'm going to save this point. Tony's got a point I was planning on addressing, so I'm going to save that question. But I want to ask Greg, like, what is your immediate thoughts? I know you may not be as familiar with Moon Knight, but, you know, what's your feeling on this casting, what you do know about him?
I am not as familiar with Moon Knight. I have a couple questions about things that have been said, but I want to give my thoughts first. Character looks cool. Can't say that I've ever read a Moon Knight comic. Not that I have anything against the characters, never have. But from what I understand, he's basically Marvel's Batman. I mean, not saying they're copying because a lot of characters run along the same storylines and power sets and everything else, but comparable. It's very similar from what I understand.
I think on the surface it is, but I think over years it's definitely changed to something. If you were to read a Moon Knight comic, you would go, "Oh, this is nothing like Batman." It's just okay. He has a cape. He's on the streets of New York, but once you read it, you're like, it's really like trippy stuff. Some of the older stuff was more, I'm just a brawler who's looking to beat people up. But I hope that they go the more kind of lesser Batman route because
I don't think you can go brawler with Oscar Isaac, to be truly honest with you. I mean, I don't know. Unless he bulks up, I just don't think he can be a brawler. personally.
Well, if you're going with the idea, you got Kumail, who's going to be in Eternals, like how he bulked up at that point. I never thought like his casting would ever get him to be bulked up like that. So like you said, if they bulk up, Moon Knight Moon Knight is a brawler. He is a legit brawler at that point. But go on. You're right. I think exactly like on a surface level, it looks at Batman, just the idea of the character, but he's much more deeper. And I don't think you're saying he's exactly like Batman at all, but on surface, he can be on a quick glance. Yes.
Yeah, that's the kind of comparisons I hear. And actually, when y'all were talking about it just a moment ago about the multiple personalities, I wasn't really aware of that. I might actually start reading some Moon Knight just to get ready for the show because it sounds pretty good. I like Oscar Isaac as an actor.
I got some for you. You talk to me. I got some for you.
I like Oscar Isaac as a character or as an actor. I think he can portray the role well, even though I don't know what to really expect with it. But I mean, it's cool. He's going to be my first. When I think of Moon Knight from now on, more than likely, I'm going to think of him. So it'll be my first kind of experience with it, unless I read some comics beforehand. I did have a couple questions. Snell, you were saying earlier you heard stuff about Kroll and Keanu, and you were scared. Was both of those scare you, Kroll and Keanu?
Well, scare me in the sense of a brawler. Just Keanu, I don't think if they go with the split personalities, I don't think he has the acting chops to do that. I think he would always just you'd see Keanu a lot, And then with Nick Kroll, I think it's kind of a similar situation where I've seen him only kind of do one or two type of shticks. And again, we've seen many comedic actors change, but for every
they sometimes can be sometimes the best dramatic actors.
Well, exactly, right. So, but the other
Jim
thing
Carrey
is
Riddler. Look at that.
When you go, oh boy. But when you talk about when you're talking about Oscar Isaac being, look, if you talk to me and say, hey, Nick Kroll's going to play a Bruce Wayne type, I don't see that. There's not many people, there's certain roles like I know in my life I can't play a Bruce Wayne type. It's just like there's certain people you got to have this like image, you got to have that jawline, you got to like Oscar Isaac has like he has ladies like always like people. You could ask Katie. The ladies love Oscar Isaac, and that's what you need in a Bruce Wayne. And Stephen Grant is that where it's just like he walks in the room and boom, you see Oscar. Where Nick Kroll, no offense, he walks and it's like okay, he looks like a cool, nice guy and everything, but you want a stunning guy. And I think that's where, and Keanu maybe could have been that if you kind of shave him and do some stuff. But I just, again, his acting wise, I wasn't sure. And it scared me because I've been on a roller coaster. Because like you were just saying, this is going to be the first one. It's not like Batman or Spider-Man where it's like, even with Tom Holland, I love him as a character. The movies I don't love, but I go, oh, I got Spider-Verse. I got the game. I got all these other versions. Right. This scares me because it's with the MCU being so successful, there's a chance this version of Moon Knight will go on for 10 years. And if I'm not a fan of it, I'll watch it and hopefully still like it. But some of those castings, I was like, oh, we only got one shot. And if I have Nick Kroll here, I don't know if I'm going to be too pleased about this one shot.
Right. All right. Second question I had was you were talking about the being Jewish and that being a big deal to people. So I'm assuming he's Jewish in the comics.
Yes.
Is that okay? To me, I just don't understand why that's a big deal. I mean, other than the only thing I could think of is that maybe people could argue about that is because it doesn't really matter. Why does it matter? Is that being Jewish is a race as well as a religion? So maybe people bring a racial aspect into that. But I just don't see a problem. Who cares?
Well,
what actor is there? I mean, that's the point we're trying to get at, right? Especially with something like why does it matter?
Well, the big thing, and again, the looking into the character and how he's portrayed at that point, it's the idea of, yes, I understand what you're saying in the sense that you're going to cast the best person for it, but when this is an integral part to the character,
that's what it is. Being Jewish is a big part of him. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And again, like you said, you haven't read it, but again, I understand your point of you cast the best person for it, but the idea that they really were trying to find someone with Jewish heritage, and I'm with you. Okay, he's practicing, not practicing that. He's got the heritage at that point, so he's at least, one could say at some point was exposed to it and things like that. But let's at least applaud them for at least he's a quality actor who has some extreme wants to do the part well, and whatever, even his recent comments on his time on Star Wars, which addressing that was what Tony's saying. It's kind of interesting. He says with him going back to Disney not so long after he basically bashed what happened on Star Wars, echoing Boyega. And so, the idea, it is that Yes, Disney is owned Star Wars at that point, but look at, Star Wars is Lucasfilm. We don't know what the idea is, and I just see Brent now just joined in with that at that point. Talk about Lucasfilm related to Disney, and since would be Marvel, but also, more than likely Feige acknowledged it because he put it out there. Isaac has put it out there that his frustration, he's never probably going to return to the role. He did not, was very much expressing his displeasure and what it was sold to him as. But Feige more than likely probably addressed it and said, this is going to be different. We're going to make sure that, you are the star of this. Like, it's not like he is a supporting cast member that, is an ensemble. He is the star. So that probably does help him at that point smoothing it over. So,
and with him too, we never, like, Boyega has these past few months been on record talking about his exact problems. Oscar Isaac's never said what his problems were. He just said that it just seems like he did not enjoy his last few years there. He's never been on record saying what it was. So it could be something completely different to be at Boyega. It's like, we don't know what the issue is. So that's the thing where maybe he'll talk about in the future, maybe he won't, but I think never say never, because look at Harrison Ford after Return of the Jedi. He was like, I'm not doing that ever again. And look, he came back for 2 Star Wars, so but it is a good point that it could be more a Lucasfilm issue. And it is interesting that they cast him though, because I feel like, I know Feige said this about Miss Marvel and then other characters potentially, but I feel like if you cast Oscar Isaac, that is a full-on, we have plans for him on the big screen. I don't think that is a just strictly Disney Plus character, which always interests me as far as, are these shows just launching pads and then they go on movies, or will they go back and forth of like movie show? Obviously, we're going to see, it's all new territory for the MCU, but I think this shows that they got big plans for Moon Knight, and that makes me excited as a big Moon Knight fan.
Yeah, and like you said, as Brent echoes, this has got to be a bigger thing with Oscar Isaac being the caliber he is,
Yeah.
And again, I think that's the great thing about the synergy of Disney and Disney owning Marvel. They can start them on the streaming platform and then move them into. I mean, that is what is happening to Miss Marvel. That is what the strong rumors are. Starting on Disney Plus doesn't mean she's doing one season then gone forever. She can come back, but the idea is her going into the Captain Marvel 2. So that is the point. That I've said that about the X-Men. At that point, it begs kind of that going back and forth to the platform. And then, you kind of think about, how we don't know when the idea, the set release date is sometime in 2022. Now, I know, some rumors have been saying it's starting to film soon, whatever. We don't know yet. And we'll get into the news about the director being made at that point too. So, I mean, things are moving along. I want to point out, a couple of weeks, last week or the week before, we had Tatiana Maslany deny She-Hulk. And you look at the Deadline article, it states the following: Marvel and Disney Plus have been ramping up their future slate of development as Isaac joins Tatiana Maslany, who was recently tapped to play She-Hulk, in Iman Vellani, who was named Miss Marvel. They don't even acknowledge the denial. They are that confident that Tatiana, after 3 or 4 weeks after the news, her denial is basically she's just can't officially confirm. So that basically is more of a confirmation how firm Deadline is. They're not even acknowledging her denial.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think we've all said that she's probably just lying, but it's not her fault, because she signed a contract and it says, hey, you can't say anything until this date. It's still weird that we have people in Spider-Man filming right now. Like the room, like I know you'll go over this maybe later, but like Christian Bale is apparently in Sydney preparing for Thor Ragnarok. But Marvel Studios, Feige has never ever once actually come and said, yeah, Christian Bale's in Thor Ragnarok. So they like to do their big show and dance where they'll have a Comic-Con, or maybe next year they have their version of DC fandom where it's like, we're going to do our Marvel thing and we want to unveil people, we want to have that reception. So I do think there's a chance this is coming out before 2022 though, because there's already been some kind of more kind of B tier, C tier scoopers saying like they're going to be filming in a month. And it's like, well, if you're filming in a month and movies maybe aren't coming out, we've talked about that, how the schedule's getting shuffled. I could see this easily next year, Halloween, because Moon Knight has a creepy feel to it. It could still be early 2022, but I could if I have to predict under my head, I think it will be earlier than that.
Yeah, and again, we're delving into, and we'll talk about Blade coming up in more of our news segment at that point. But again, Moon Knight's another, not to try to be too on the nose, another quote unquote darker character for the MCU. And so I do like that they are experimenting with this, and this is going to be a big test. Blade, Moon Knight, other characters like that. How can this be portrayed in a Disney-owned MCU?
Yeah.
Well, two things is Brent brings up a good point in the chat about the She-Hulk stuff. Mark Ruffalo already welcomed her.
Yep.
So you have one, and two. I feel like Marvel's already gone or experimented or dipped their toes at least in the water with darker stories. Everything Netflix, Marvel, the Defenders and Jessica Jones, Daredevil.
Yeah.
I mean, Daredevil was a lot darker than anything you've seen.
But
in
those,
the MCU.
those didn't connect to the MCU though. That's the thing. That was the pitch.
So
They're
connect.
gonna.
Well, still,
Yeah.
it's same studio producing it, correct?
It is, but it's like the point of, let's say you see Moon Knight in a movie, kids are gonna go, okay, I want to see his show, where Daredevil was never in that movie. So families could ignore Daredevil they want, right? If Moon Knight's in a movie and he's a bit darker, that's why I don't think you're gonna have Moon Knight crushing skulls like Daredevil. I think it'll be a hard PG-13 as hard as they can go. But this will be the first time to see if, good old Disney with a lot of families, do they reject characters like Blade, Ghost Rider, maybe one day, Moon Knight, that are a bit more on that kind of creepier side. But I think this is them dabbling their toes as far as they'll start with it. The same way Guardians was like, okay, let's test out space. That was a big hit. And then look at the back half of the last MCU phase. So much space, so this is the same thing. Disney Plus is a good starting point. And obviously Blade is apparently going to be a film now, but it is still, I think, more risky than the whole Eternals and Guardians, like unknown characters. This is like more like, I won't say anti-family, but I guess it depends. Or they take it and it's not that dark, and then you'll have people maybe like myself, this is not kind of what I envisioned. So they got to find that right sort of balance. I think they can, but it is still tough in a Disney world sometimes.
Yeah, Heinz said it best. It's all connected if you ask Marvel Television, not Marvel Studios. So that's why I say what I say. Yes, you're right. Daredevil, Jessica Jones. Yes, definitely dark portrayals of Marvel Universe characters in what was said by some now gone executives that it's all connected at that point. Well, not so much. So now that's what I mean by saying MCU darkness at that point. We haven't really seen that official. This is our official MCU introduction. So
hey, real quick, Snell, while you're here a few more minutes, man, cover me. My old dog is over here whining about something. I gotta go make sure he's okay. So
gotcha.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, hit me with the next topic. I got about 10 more minutes. And
okay, we'll hit to the director at that point. So also deadline 2 for 2. Moon Knight, Mohammed Diab to direct Marvel's Disney Plus series. Clash Helmer, Mohammed Diab has been tapped to direct Moon Knight, the Marvel series. Nobody is commenting, but deadline hears the this is consistent, but but we hear that the Egyptian filmmaker has bored of the drama starring Oscar Isaac as a titular character of Moon Knight. He's been mostly made his name writing and directing in Egypt, his native country, but his work has been recognized worldwide by some of the most recognizable names in the business. This will be his first major production in both Hollywood and in the US, and it just so happens to come with one of the biggest franchises in cinematic history.
Not a bad start to a North American career.
No, I mean, again, I've never seen any of his films, but they are right. He has gathered a huge acclaim at that point. And again, this is going to lead to another point where Greg and I are going to go into later, looking at the another article looking at the purposeful of casting for representation. If you're dealing with a character that is dealing with an Egyptian god based on Egyptian ideals, you should get someone. You should look towards someone who is from that country, has a background in it, and can bring some respect to that story at that point. So.
Absolutely. The biggest example I always use is Damon Lindelof, what he did with The Last Watchmen. He was the showrunner, but he's been on multiple interviews. He said, I brought in people that shared the experiences of these characters, these moments, specifically Black people, because that's mostly what that show is about, with a lot of tragedies and a lot of today's culture and stuff like that. So him as a white guy could go, okay, I have these ideas. I want to do the story, but how could I get it relatable? How can I really put myself in those shoes? Well, I can't. I want to get people that have had these similar experiences that I can actually write about. I want to get the best people. And that's the same way with this is with Khonshu, you're going to have lots of Egyptian lore. Same thing. I love Moon Knight, but my Egyptian lore kind of comes down from Moon Knight and Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. You know, like I know very little about it because it's just like
you don't remember World History class?
No, I don't. I remember learning about Louis Riel, but that's about it. But and we burnt the White House down at some point in Canada, so you know, maybe it'll happen again. I don't know, but I think it's good, and that's the other thing when people are talking about the Oscar Isaac thing, where I imagine when they're bringing this director on who has heritage to a character that's going to impact, who technically Moon Knight is Egyptian. Like Mark Spector takes the body of Moon Knight, but it is Moon Knight's like almost his own identity. He's a guy that can throw crescent moons as a weapon. Like he's a brawler, but he can still have like magical elements. So like Moon Knight is Egyptian. That's why I still think there's a chance they talk to Oscar Isaac about the Judaism or the Jewish stuff. And I feel like that's why because that's what I'm waiting for, because I think people are already judging him way too quick. I think he will talk about that, and that might be something that really spoke to him. And I think the same thing with this director. It's good because there's a lot of lore and a lot of culture with Egyptians and in Egypt that many of us, I guarantee you, do not know. And I think it's good to have someone like that. And it's a TV show as well. So again, these are going to have bigger budgets, but I think for him coming to North America, it's a good start as far as you'll be guided in a certain way, but he'll also get to show his talent. And yeah, I think it's a really smart choice. Like you said, I've not seen any of his stuff, but I get excited when they go, oh, Sam Raimi's directing a movie. But even when it's an indie newer person with Marvel, I usually get excited because they've never really steered me wrong. There's been a few, movies, Iron Man 2, Thor Dark World, that are very low on the tone pole, but I like every MCU movie. So I think this was a smart choice. And I'm excited to see what he does.
I agree.
I know none of us have any familiarity with the director. Greg, do you have any kind of?
Well, did you say that he did the Umbrella Academy?
No, that's the showrunner. That's the show. They're leading the writing room. So yeah, so he brings some strong chops at that point. I mean, I agree. Yeah. Trying to dabble into Umbrella Academy now that I understand there's huge differences between the comic and the show, and I've heard more cases that the show is actually better than the actual comic at that point. So I'm going to give it another shot. I kind of fell off of it, but I'm going to give it another shot and
get past episode 4. You'll really
okay. All right. Yep. I'll do that at that point. But you're right. him with that, how successful that is, that's definitely big for as a showrunner.
Yeah. That's all I could really think of. I know you said that earlier. I wanted to mention it or ask you about it again because I didn't exactly hear what you said, but I want to bring it back up. But I mean, I love Umbrella Academy. So if, like you said, if he's a showrunner, he did that and he's a showrunner for this, then I know at least it's going to have good writing.
Yeah, it should be. And also there was another possible rumored casting before being, what was it? Now the name escapes me. Daveed Diggs was also supposedly considered for the Moon Knight part, which love him in Hamilton, love him in everything he's done. I think he would have been also a great casting for it with his acting chops. So maybe another place for them. A lot of times they may not get this part, but they may be something else eyeing because if they got that far in the process, possibly they may be eyed for something else. So.
Hey, if you're in the chat room, we got 11 people watching now. 6 thumbs up.
Hulk smash that like button.
That's right.
Throw that crescent moon.
Yeah, throw that crescent moon. But before we head into our next main topic, focusing on a Falcon Winter Soldier, Snell, you're going to stick around or are you going to head on out?
No, I gotta go. I already stayed 10 minutes over.
Right.
I gotta get back out there. But no, I thank you both for just letting me get on here because this was obviously a big one we talked about for weeks. So when I know my schedule, I'll let you all know. And I'm hopefully to return as soon as possible. But you'll see me in like 40, 50 minutes, or well, if you're listening to this, you will, because we got Comic Book Club. And we're up there. Me and Chris recorded that, so that's lots of fun. But hopefully, I'll be back as soon as possible, and I'll be watching. As I say, I'm always watching like
All right, Travis. See you later, buddy.
Right.
Great talking to you.
All right, so with that, we're gonna take our first kind of ad break. So, listeners, these ads help actually keep the Geek Ultimate Alliance, help actually keep Spider-Man's web shooters full of web fluid at that point. So we help him out at that point. Yes, he does. Definitely. We don't subscribe to the he makes his own out of his own body. That's just kind of crazy. Yeah. So we don't get to choose what ads come on, but they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to do a 3 count in order to turn that volume down. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit. All right, and we're back. So our next big story, just a couple of stories that kind of hit two kind of basically a twofer at that point. Falcon and the Winter Soldier supposedly has wrapped production in Prague. Therefore, the idea, this comes from Prague news sources saying that the film in Prague is finished early, saying that we were told that one part of the production was supposed to continue until Friday, but the production was so quick that they were able to wrap everything up on Thursday. So this came last week. The outlet describes that the last days of filming were spent in St. Gabriel Monastery, which can be seen in a photo from the site that the news organization had said Family Filmu. In the photo gallery were locations disguised as Latvian, another location where John Walker, U.S. agent, uses excessive force on an enemy combatant was also made to look like Latvia. So big news. This has been the one show that, was supposed to launch the Disney Plus MCU. And unfortunately, COVID had other plans for it. So that's exciting news, in my opinion, that, that at least principal photography appears to be done on the show.
Yeah, it actually said while principal photography of Falcon is done and finished, it doesn't mean it's over. There could very well still be reshoots for various reasons, as well as additional coverage from editors, filming filming continuity for a scene or any other minor reasons. So yeah, there's always stuff that could happen, and you still got post after they've wrapped the filming. So.
And there may have to go back to Prague for reshoots. That's the thing. It does go into the idea that, they did a lot of work in Atlanta, like a lot of MCU films do. But, they may have actually wrapped everything like possible post stuff for Atlanta at that point. So if they have to go back, it's not too much. But my prediction for when we see this is either an early, late spring or a summer show. That is my prediction.
See it as far as the series?
Yeah, the series. Okay. I think it's either probably late spring or a summer Disney Plus air date. Because again, once they're finally officially done with any film, post-production, you can do all that without too much trouble being quarantined. But if they have to do reshoots, that does add into some time and getting everyone's schedule lined up. But I don't, that's what I'm thinking at that point, late spring, early summer. So I'm like Brent at this point. Give it to me now. I've wanted this. This is the continuation of this series at that point. And I've desperately tried to avoid big leaks. There was a huge leak, and I've avoided it about supposedly the big bad, and it had supposedly been leaked, and so I've avoided it. So
I haven't seen anything about it. I get all my news from y'all. So if y'all don't say
don't look.
I'm not, So when they announced this these shows they're going to do, the MCU was for Disney Plus, I'm not gonna lie, the only one that I actually seemed really excited for at the moment was this one. I'm more excited for WandaVision now, and moving forward in the future, I'm sure I'm going to enjoy what they do because it's Marvel. I mean, MCU does everything they do except for one movie is fantastic, and even that one movie is not bad. It's just my least favorite of all of them. But I'm excited to see what's going on with this, and it is nice to know they finished filming, like you said, because that means that we should be able to see it pretty soon. My question for you is: you said we may see it next spring or fall. When did you say? Spring, right? Andrew? You said when we're going to see it is spring?
Yeah, spring at that point. Snell back looks in the chat. I know fan Clay wants it. He said he hopes post will only be until the end of February for February, March. That's a lot of pushing at that point.
Well, my question is, when do you see a trailer for it?
I think you see it. I think you'll see a first cut of a trailer probably January, February at that point. We might, I'll take it back. We might see something at the investors meeting or hear something from it in December. We might hear more.
That's what I was thinking. Around Christmas time, I think is when if you're shooting for like a March, April release of the show, I think you put the first trailer out Christmas time.
Yeah. And Snell puts in chat, any chance we find a way to release before Black Widow, maybe reshuffling some end credit scene? Sure. I mean, right now, Black Widow's basically reshuffled their stuff back to a year from their original release date in May. So definitely could be either before Black Widow or after Black Widow. I think Black Widow, either before or after it, very close to, if we're going to keep that release date, is going to be big. Brent says in the chat, if they are in post now, they could definitely make a February, March release. Have to remember they already had the vast bulk of it in the can. So again, it is possible. So definitely as early spring, remember they still have a little bit of time. Once WandaVision goes, if they want, they can put in what if the animated series is complete as far as we understand. So that could be another placeholder for the MCU on Disney Plus to give Falcon and the Winter Soldier more time. And to the point, they go February, March at that point, or March at that point, and Black Widow does keep that release date of May. It is a good lead into Black Widow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I'm looking at this article, man, and I think for me, one of the most interesting things I see about this article, because I know nothing about this show other than the characters and what's they're moving forward, is them talking about I just scrolled away from most. Oh yeah, the Oslowski Cemetery, which appears to be a graveyard in Poland. Like, what vibes do you get when you hear there's a graveyard scene?
Well, obviously some death is going to happen, or someone's going to get severely beaten.
could be reminiscing. Could be be somebody visiting a grave. You never know. I saw that and I was like, well, okay, so this might be something that happens. I'm not sure, because there's I don't know what the other article is. There was another article. Isn't there another actor already been cast as a Captain America?
Well, we have an actor cast as John Walker, U.S. agent at that point. So there is strong possibilities that the government is not happy and wants Falcon to continue on despite Steve giving him the shield. So we've seen in the earliest kind of teasers we have seen for Falcon and the Winter Soldier is seeing John Walker in what we in the comics have seen U.S. agent, but they may be calling him Captain America because they don't want that. So, but U.S. agent, his history is he's pretty brutal at points, and I sense an idea that his brutalness can possibly give people pause to say, is he the right Captain America?
Right. Yeah. Was it you that sent me a picture of the merchandise where there's actual? It's a leak.
Yes, it was.
It's a leak of the toy that shows him, and it describes him on the toy as Captain America. Which, sorry if I leaked that to anybody, but
no, you're good. No, I mean it's kind of understood at that point if you've seen kind of the teasers. So yeah, even the toy is labeling Captain America. So, again, for us at that point, it's not a huge shocker at that point if you've seen the kind of the teasers over and over again. So at some point they're going to call him maybe Captain America. But it'll be interesting. Like you said, it's just how much more post-production do they need to do at that point too? I think, again, a spring release. But moving on to our next kind of story tied into this is coming from Empire magazine. Falcon and the Winter Soldier set to reinvent Marvel characters from the early MCU movies. While speaking on the Script Apart podcast by Empire about his original screenplay for John Wick, writer Derek Kolstad, who's in the writer's room for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, also talked about the show. Kolstad mentioned that mentioned that the show would bring back earlier characters introduced in the MCU. What I will say is that there are characters from the earliest Marvel movies and that are coming back. We're layering them in and reinventing them in a way that's going to shift the storytelling structure. It's effing awesome. So again, he's got the pedigree. I love that he's in the writings room for this. And it brings some interesting ideas of who's coming back. The article goes into, could we possibly seeing the triumphant return of Toby Jones's Arnim Zola? The last time we saw him was in Captain America in the Winter Soldier as the, on the computer image at that point. So we could, for us comic fans, we could see him take his final form at that point. And look that up. It's pretty interesting if they're going to go that route. We could see possible returns of, we know possibly maybe Thunderbolt Ross is coming back. Justin Hammer, maybe the Abomination, the Leader. Again, we can see some of these as flashbacks, some ideas. It's going to be, and so I like that idea that we're going to bring some of these characters back and flesh them out in a way that we didn't get the first time.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me wonder what they're going to be doing with them, because some of them obviously have got to be flashbacks. If you're going to bring back the Howling Commandos, it's got to be flashbacks, right? You could Abomination didn't die at the end of Hulk, did he? I can't remember. It's been so long. I know he got the crap kicked
Brent's
out of him.
yelling at us right now. Probably he just jumped out of the chat, but he's going to yell at us. I thought if he wasn't dead, I want to say he's severely beaten.
But I don't think he was killed. But you never know what happens to him after that.
My first guess. It's been a while since I've seen it. He definitely in Canvas Clay, he did not die. So yeah, my initial thoughts were right. He did not die.
Okay. So I mean, I could see that. I mean, it's cool, but I don't. I mean, there's nothing on this that like super excites me. But once again, you can change that by doing something awesome, and maybe if they do something awesome, I'll end up loving it. I'm sure I'm gonna like it either way. But wasn't Zola one of the other ones on that photo leak with the toys where they showed a picture of him?
No, that was Zemo. That was Baron Zemo.
Okay.
So he's got the comic accurate kind of ski mask that he's known to wear. Okay. So because we never even got that in Civil War, so that was kind of cool. We're seeing that finally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see this idea. I don't know. We're making assumptions about who it could be based on this article, but it'll be good.
Who are some ideas of anybody they didn't include in this article that you could think of? Because before I read the characters they read off that could be, I really couldn't think of anybody that they could bring back that, I mean, they could really excite me. Trying to think. Who?
I mean, Justin Hammer. Before I even read when I saw the thing, I said, "Oh, Justin Hammer would be awesome," and they mentioned that at that point. Awesome, yep. But I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, the article focused on bad guys, for the most part, and so we already know Sharon Carter's back. At that point, so we're going to get more involved with her, which is great. But I don't know. It's nothing comes to the top of my head because they kind of took my ideas. I was kind of surprised at the Abomination. Not overly popular. Tony says Batrunk, not overly popular, but he did play a part in the Winter Soldier. Batrunk. Why is that name sound familiar?
Who did? What about? What's the guy that fought Captain America? Crossbones.
Well, he's dead.
He's dead. Okay, that's right. He got blown up. That's right. Okay. So I was trying to think about villains that make come back.
Now, as everything is comics, see, you could find Canadian GSP.
Yeah, you're right.
Canadian hero GSP. Interesting Heinz. That's okay. I see. Yep. Okay. This is one. Yes, you're right. Okay. It took me a minute, Tony, at that point. You're right. Batroc the Leaper, he has already been brought back in. This guy is the one, Georges Batroc. He's the one who fought Cap at the beginning of Winter Soldier on the boat.
Okay.
I have to think about in the boat scene. You can look him up real quick at that point. And Heinz says, he's a Canadian hero. Sorry, I'm not in Canada. I respect Canada. I'm not lessening it. It's just I don't know.
Right. How tall is he in centimeters?
Clay says Obadiah Stane back from the dead. Boom. There we go. We're going to bring everyone back. Everyone comes back from the dead. No stakes in the Marvel universe.
They messed with time. And when you mess with time, things happen.
No, that's just for Spider-Man. It's for Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in WandaVision. And Endgame. He is a UFC champion for 8 years. So again, not my tempo UFC. Sorry.
I agree with Snell here. Give me Justin Hammer. I love Justin Hammer's character.
I just like Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, so. He does a great job.
They don't know who GSP is.
No, I don't. GSP.
Not my tempo. Sorry, it's not my thing. I don't know what it can. Go flashback to Chris back in his early high school years when he was into that kind of stuff. I grew out of it at that point. I have total respect for it. Just not my thing anymore. Right. But yeah, so again, we're getting more and more. Hopefully, like you said, a trailer possibly coming very soon. So that would be awesome. If Spider-Man can supposedly gets a first look in December, shoot, and that's just starting. Well, Winter Soldier Break gets something out there too.
Right. Oh yeah, I agree.
Mephisto can bring people back. Oh, stop that, Tony. We don't mention his name. That's a name that shall not be mentioned.
New character. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, all right. Let me look at the time right now. We'll go. Yeah, the next stories. we'll take an ad break a little bit later at that point. So
yeah.
Let's head into so those are kind of our main stories at that point. So, but now we're going to hit a couple of, we got a couple of big ones within this. So, I put this in our rundown because it ties into the next story regarding Blade. Is that it is coming from Hollywood Reporter. Hollywood agents navigate new complexities of balancing the demand for diverse voices in artistic films. So, we're seeing more and more in Hollywood, studios trying to cast for representation at that point. And in looking at that, they have a quote in here from some of the agents at that point saying, I've seen an increased commitment and desire for directors and writers to have something in connection to their potential projects, says ICM literary agent Ava Greenfield, who represents Black filmmakers such as Regina King. They're going in as saying if for example a story is centered on a Black woman, there is an initial commitment from the buyers to find a Black female director or a writer for this project. Studios have been motivated since for diverse hirings for very recently. At that point, they do call out in the article current projects that studios are hoping to populate with Black behind the camera talent, such as Marvel's Blade, starring Mahershala Ali, which is looking for writers. It does go into the idea that, again, this is the push that Hollywood's been making for some time very recently, and it's a long time coming. And, we kind of hinted about this, and I know you talked a little bit about it on DC Alliance at that point. It's good to see Hollywood doing this, and it goes back to what we said. Like, if the story is focused on that, yes, definitely you want to cast for representation, but also, again, it brings us the idea that I think hearing that, like, you want to focus, you want to have their voice in it. But I'll bring it back to your point, like, just because it's you want to cast the best person, but you want to open it up to truly looking at everyone having a true opportunity to do this, because we look at even representation, even in the Academy, even in this, like, Hollywood has a very, very long problem with just you cast the same actors, directors, people, and you get a very white look,
Understand.
white male look at that point. And I hope that studios are going to cast. It's not just stories that are focused on African Americans, Latino Americans, any minority, Asian Americans, any of them. You want to cast, like, if you just have general parts at that point, you cast for the best part, but also within that, you cast for the best person for the best part. You also need to give a fair shot to look at, hey, just because it says a general description doesn't mean that, a white male can be doing it. Well, why can't an Asian man do it? Why can't it be? Heck, Ripley was supposed to be a man in Alien, and then they decided to make a quick switch and cast Sigourney Weaver and turn the character into a woman.
Well, I think it I had questions about this article, and it on surface level, it's really weird to think about, because it's one of those situations where you want diversity casting and you want diversity directing. Like, I want to hear more different stories from different kinds of directors, and that's great. But it's one of those situations where I think that if the character or the story has to do with something that is historically relevant to a race, then I think that then it's almost like a necessity to have someone of that race to be directing, to have that influence. However, if it's just a movie about a character and they happen to be Black or they happen to be white, and it has nothing to do with a historical reference to the race, to anything like that, then why can't anybody direct it? I'm not saying that a white guy or a Black person or a Hispanic person couldn't direct something from another culture, like more culturally based, but it just seems to make more sense, And I was listening to acting is different like that, because I was listening to Danny Glover's comedy the other day. I listened to 24/7 comedy. It's a podcast, or not a podcast, but it's a iHeart radio station that plays just 5-10 minute clips of comedy, comedian stand up all day long continuously. And Danny Glover was talking the other day, and he's talking about how there was a huge push for him to be Spider-Man, and he had taken so much stuff from it and this and that, and how people he just ignored everybody talking about, Spider-Man can't be Black and this and that. and he just ignored all of it.
They haven't read Miles Morales. Then.
Right. Until one person, I can't remember the exact what he said. He said one person said something. And he's like, "Oh, so we're just gonna hire Spider-Man to be black. I guess we'll just have Michael Cena be Shaft now." And I loved Danny Glover's response. He said he didn't respond to anybody about any of these. He's like, "I'm just ignore it. These people can think what they want, whatever. If you want me to be Spider-Man, I'll be Spider-Man. If not," and he definitely could be. It'd be awesome. But his response was, he responded to that guy on Twitter, and he was like, "I want to see it," or something like that, which is great because it's like, I want to see it. How cool would that be to see Michael Cera as Shaft? It'd be a funny movie, you know. But I love the response to it, where it's like it's not an argument, it's not a fight. It's like, okay, do it, type deal, because we can have a black Spider-Man. It'd be great. You know, I mean,
heck,
like,
we can have a female Spider-Man.
Exactly.
We can have any kind of Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I loved his response to it because it was basically just a okay, let's see it type deal, and I love that mindset of, well, let's see what happens, and if it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. We'll move forward from where we go from there. Mm-hmm. You never know, though, man. There's so many different kinds of stories and so many ways they can be portrayed. But this article, like I said, it's just kind of it was confusing to me because. And they even bring this point up in the article where it's you push and you push for more diversity in hiring and casting and in directing, and then as soon as somebody gets directed for this or gets set up to direct this role or play this role, you make a big deal about the race, but you want it to be not a big deal before. And Travis explains to me very, very well last night.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he did.
He did a good job explaining it. And I'm legitimately asking questions. And that's the thing is people need to ask questions. That's the reason why the world is the way it is today, because people either assume something and never ask a question, or just were scared to ask the question, just believe whatever they're told. Ask questions, you know?
And I think echoing what Travis said on DC Alliance at that point, people want to be accepted as people at that point, but when you come to different races and ethnicities, it's how I would explain to my students when we talk about Native Americans. It's just like, you can't, when the government tried to end, this is history time with Mr. Balga, when you try to tell a person you can't be what you either religion or anything like that, it's like, can you rip the skin off your thing and be okay? Well, no, that's who they are. So, saying you're casting for the person, but if that person does happen to be a different race and ethnicity, and if it's part of the person, you have to acknowledge it and you have to get that representation. Just like you want people to look up to, hey, this is, in the case of Batwoman, this is an African-American woman getting to be part of the Bat family. Mm-hmm. You want them to look up to that. You want to acknowledge it, want to show that at that point, in any kind of idea. And we're going to bring that up with one of our last series looking at Shang-Chi, that bring that up as well. And that's the reason I thought this article was seeing how the news is going. I thought it was kind of a timely article to kind of bring this out. And you're right. It is a very delicate thing. You don't want to cast just to cast for diversity, and changing old Hollywood to get the right people in there to make those casting choices and to get those ideas stops that from happening. Old Hollywood would just cast for diversity. Or no, I take back. Old Hollywood wouldn't even cast for diversity. But old Hollywood, who's trying to look like they would cast, are just going to cast to get people off their back. The newer right Hollywood needs to make sure you're not only casting for the right part, but casting. And if you're going to cast for diversity, cast for the right reason with diversity. Give everyone a fair shot.
And the last paragraph of this article actually kind of touches on that right there, which is saying of maybe that it was different like that before. Now it's, you need to do it for the right reason. Instead of studios are overcorrecting to the point they send any projects demographically up to appropriate filmmakers, regardless of the person's creative interest. So that's a side effect of the industry's long-standing pattern of exclusion, some agents say, and the agency source states it speaks to the systematic failure of our businesses to have nurtured more of these kinds of filmmakers, that sometimes you'll just put someone on a list because they're black or female. Exactly. And that's exactly kind of point. We want them to be in there, but we want to be for the right reason. And before, it feels like the only reason they were doing it was to get that credit for doing it, or because it's the way to be looked at, the right thing to do. Now we're seeing that it's not just that, it's people are talented. There's all kinds of different talents all over the place. So hire talented people to do talented things, and you're going to get a great product.
Yeah, exactly. And if y'all already don't know, I'm a white man. Greg's a white man. These are two white men talking about things that. And again, we I acknowledge the privilege I have as a white man, as Greg does too. So, I mean, we are not the people that can say I have any experience in this, but I recognize what it is, just like you, Greg, recognizing what it is and bringing it out. So, again, just putting that out there. If you already didn't know, not watching the chat, we are two white men talking about this. But moving on to this, and we'll bring this up a little bit later, the idea this brings up with Blade. Blade, Mashallah Ali shares excitement for quote unquote darker characters in MCU after Luke Cage. So on an episode of the Tightrope podcast, upcoming Blade star Mashallah Ali talked about the new Blade film. That's key. Number one, it is a film. That's the first time we've seen in my opinion, seen a true kind of acknowledgement of it being a film, because we were kind of unsure. But he talked about how Blade may have been a television series from Marvel Television and how Luke Cage kind of fits into that. He said, so I did this Marvel show for Netflix called Luke Cage. And so in doing that show, the day it premiered, I turned to my agent and said, hey, what are they doing with Blade? Because I kept hearing that they were trying to find a way to remake it and put it together. And it was exciting for me to be in that Marvel space on TV. But for my goal, I had to be in film. But also being able to participate in television in very specific ways had real meaning. But my larger goal was to be really navigating between film and television. And so I turned to my agent and said, what are they doing with Blade? And so he goes to check on it. And there was this long process of them speaking about it, at least in television division. Really wanted to make it a TV show again, but not necessarily trying to acquire the rights, at the same time. So it's kind of weird stuff going on. But he goes on to say, but my participation in Luke Cage that sparked the idea, married with being inspired by Wesley Snipes' work and what he had done and how much had changed since that iteration of Blade, and how that sort of ushered in an era like this Marvel and DC DC short of comic book stuff. And so for me, it said, I just felt like since they were having a conversation about bringing it back into being, I just wanted to be considered for it, because I definitely have a connection. And at least in my mind, Wesley Snipes, going way back and seeing Wesley Snipes way back in high school when people used to joke and say we looked alike, all that stuff. So that's kind of cool, and he has a huge respect for Wesley Snipes. He wants to recognize and honor it at that point and bring something more to it. He says, I love it's darker, all in terms of that tone, a little bit darker and some other ones. And so the elements are attractive to me. This is the most he's ever spoken about the character since he was introduced as their new Blade.
It makes you wonder how much they've actually done on the project since then. Has everything been on hold? Did they just kind of put Blade on the back burner? Because you're right, I haven't heard anything about this since.
Yes, he's played. He played Cottonmouth in Luke Cage, and from this moment in time, the only non-producer officially attached to Blade reboot is Mashallah Ali. Mm-hmm. So we know they're looking for a director. We know they're looking for writers at that point, but he is the only participant that is been acknowledged. Not saying they already have people lined up, because trust me, they didn't just wake up yesterday and cast Oscar Isaac. They didn't just wake up later today and say, oh, we found a director. They've had these people in place. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of when we're going to get that acknowledgement. But you're right, we have not heard a lot because it is further down the slate. So but I mean, I like hearing his acknowledgement of the past. He's a very amazing actor, 2-time Oscar winner for supporting actor. So you can't argue with this man's chops. And he was amazing as Cottonmouth.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. I mean, Blade was something I loved growing up. And what's funny is they're talking about it being darker. Blade was decently dark. And maybe it was just me being a little younger growing up. And maybe for comic book movies, it seemed a little dark. But it definitely was darker than I think. Well, I wouldn't say darker than the MCU. I guess just blood and vampires made it seem a little more darker, but I guess it really wasn't that bad. There were a few scenes that were kind of, but I'll be interested to see the new take on it.
Yeah, again, darker. like we said, I mean, again, to have a vampire hunter, you're gonna have some blood. Mm-hmm. We're not gonna go the SNES route when they got Mortal Kombat and go green blood at that point. We're not gonna save it for the kiddies. Mm-hmm. And Snell's asking, what's your excitement level for Blade and supernatural stuff like vampires in the MCU?
On a 1 to 10 scale?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Well, I've never been a huge vampire guy. I do like Blade as a character, so I would give it like a 7.5.
All right.
Maybe an 8. Yeah, I mean, excited for it. It'd be fun to see.
So yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed, love the Blade series at that point. Obviously, they got progressively a little bit lower on the idea, but again, it was some of, at the time we didn't have that many Marvel movies. We took what we could get at that point. And so in comparison to what we have now, yeah, it's probably not the best at that point. But again, I like that we're bringing these characters up, and this is again a new unknown territory for Disney and the MCU, trying to figure out how we're going to really expand the MCU and what does it look like. So not everything can be all rainbows and stars, right?
Right.
All right, our next story. This came last minute from Mr. Snell, pointed this out to me, and I thought it was going on along this lines. Latita Wright wants to fight alongside Captain Marvel in an all-female Avengers movie. So speaking to Yahoo Entertainment, Latita Wright offered that it's only a matter of time before audiences see Marvel Studios brings an all-female Avengers team to the screen. She says, I don't think we have to fight for it. Marvel Studios Vice President of Production, Victoria Alonso, is very strong about spearheading it alongside Kevin Feige. It's only a matter of time before they do it. And when asked about Marvel characters she'd like to fight alongside in the film, Wright replied, definitely have to have Captain Marvel, definitely. Also mentioning Danny Guerrera, Lupita Nyong'o, Angela Bassett, and Tessa Thompson to have joined the cast. So, this is referencing the group A-Froce in Marvel Comics. The first published in 2015. The squad was initially led by She-Hulk, and also we had other ideas of led by She-Hulk, and then includes the other ideas of had Dazzler, Medusa, Nico Minoru, and Singularity in its first iteration, and then had other Captain Marvel, Medusa. We could include Mantis, Wanda Maximoff. We all remember the scene in Avengers that had that little homage to it that people recently, some of the main people from, I think it was the director or showrunner for The Boys, had some very dislike of it, and showed that in The Boys at that point. So I like hearing the names, the big people at Marvel Studios are working to make this a reality.
Yeah, I'd watch it. I don't have anything against it. I mean, it's not something that I necessarily have to have, but it's a good idea. It'd be fun to see. I don't see how you get all those characters coming together for a cohesive story. But I mean, MCU can do it, I'm sure. Give it to me. I mean, I'll watch it. It's like I said, it's not something that I have to have. Once again, I'm a male, so I don't necessarily have to have. I'm not saying that I wouldn't like it though. I'm sure it'd be fun to watch, and it's awesome to see some badass women kick ass. So
yeah,
I mean, why not? I like all these characters. Like I said, I just don't see how you write a cohesive story with all these characters. They're all from really different backgrounds and really different parts of the Marvel universe. Unless you're bringing them together for a huge team up movie, like Endgame would have been, I don't see them coming together for any reason other than that, like galaxy cataclysmic or universe ending type stuff.
Yeah, and Tony brings up in the chat, he says probably not a movie, but a TV show instead. That would definitely be cool. I see an X-Men female only movie. Yeah, I think that you could do this at that point. It's just got a feeling like, what's the purpose? What is at that point? You can't just throw them all together, because then again it becomes a joke. It becomes what the boys runner was saying, and why he put that scene in the season finale at that point, to bring it. Say, this has meaning, but we're making fun of what you did. Because if you do absolutely nothing with it, then it's a throwaway Easter egg. Cool, but it kind of is a slap in the face of what that idea of A-Froce was supposed to be.
Right.
So again, we'll have to see.
I think it goes back to the article we were just talking about before, right? Whereas you can do this and it can be good, but if the only reason you're doing it is to have a female Avengers movie, then that may not be the right reason. It's a good reason to have, but it can't be the only reason you're doing it. You got to have it because you want to put a good product out there and have a great story with these characters, which you can do.
Oh yeah.
But if you just kind of half-ass it and do it, well, we just want to do this for the clicks to have an all-female movie, then that's not the right way to go. Like I said, I'm not saying it can't be a good movie, because I'll pay. It's already got my money if they make it. I'm gonna go see it. So I mean, it's good. I could definitely watch it, but you just got to make it for the right reason.
Oh yeah, exactly. And Clay says in chat, I see a 4-episode Disney Plus special. Yeah, I mean, again, like we just said, you got to do it right. All right, so before we head into the last part of the last few stories of news, we're going to take our next ad break. You know, as we say that this keeps the Web Fluid and Spidey shooters on the Geek Ultimate Alliance, so we don't get to choose what ads come on, but they could be a bit loud. So we're going to do a 3 count to make sure you turn that volume down. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit. All right, so let's kind of make a wrap up with these last few stories. And I found this and I kind of chuckled. So Greg's going to have some things to say about this. Thor, Love and Thunder, Natalie Portman teases really silly parts in Marvel sequels. So she was recently interviewed and on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and he asked, saying, you know, what could she talk about with the new Thor movie? And not much, but in the very 66-second video, she did bring up that she's in pre-production down in Australia, and she says, you know, get Taika back as directing, and says it's going to be really silly and funny and great. Now, when people hear this and people say this at that point, they jump all over it and say, oh my gosh, the whole movie is going to be a joke. And people who know the Mighty Thor, know Jane Foster is battling cancer at that point, saying, oh my gosh, you're going to turn this into not acknowledge it. I'm going to say right now, watch Jojo Rabbit, Taika Waititi. That is a movie that is a huge drama, but also has very funny parts. I think we give too much credence to the fact of, yes, Thor Ragnarok was very different compared to what Thor is in the comics. But the idea that she says it's going to be really silly, funny, is like, that is one statement that's not going to necessarily be the whole movie. That is my hope. And that's what I think. Because again, you can't, that's an important part of Jane Foster's character, her battling cancer. And I don't think that's one of the reasons Natalie Portman left Thor, was because of the treatment of what happened with, you know, our Wonder Woman director, Patty Jenkins, walking off the thing. That's one of the reasons why she is not just going to do it because she understands what that character is. And she's a very respected actress. That's not just going to say, oh, I'm just going to throw away the character. She knows what certain characters have weight to it is. So, you know, again, her saying that, yeah, you know, it probably is going to be fun and silly at that point, but I don't think the whole movie is going to be a joke.
That's the only thing I'm worried about. I really like Thor as a character. He's one of my favorite Marvel characters. You can see Mjolnir back there. All right.
Yep.
There. I got it that way.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, and I feel like while Ragnarok was good, they made a joke of the character, and they made him the punching bag for the entire MCU for just a little while. You know, Infinity War, he was that's the Thor I want to see. Like the one at the end of that, like where you get Stormbreaker, that's Thor to me, and that's the Thor I like. And you know, Love and Thunder, it's an interesting take on the where they're moving forward with it. We still haven't heard anything about Hemsworth in his future with Thor, right? So
he wants to stay as much as possible, he basically said, but you know, we know, you know, you get older, you want to do other things. I mean, Chris Evans eventually said he wanted to do other things. I could see him coming back, but you know, his time is done.
My question is about it. Is Natalie Portman going to become the new Thor, and like that's Thor for the next 3 phases of MCU?
Well, I don't know. Again, they're like with everything with MCU, they're going to take what's done in the comics with what's been done. The MCU's never been. I think we talked about this on a couple of shows ago with Brent at that point, where Marvel MCU does not. They'll take ideas from the comics, but they won't be a direct like page to screen adaptation. There'll be little hints, there'll be little winks and nods, there'll be talking points, but they won't do the idea. So in the comics, at one point in the storyline Original Sin, something happens, something is said to Thor, and then he becomes immediately unworthy to wield Mjolnir. What happens later on is that all of a sudden we see a new quote unquote female Thor wielding the hammer, and is revealed to be Jane Foster to be wielding the hammer at that point because Thor was unworthy. And seeing the fight ensue at that point, Thor actually he gave up his title to being Thor, giving, you know, Jane being the mighty Thor at that point. I will not acknowledge people calling it female Thor. It is the mighty Thor. So I don't know, and I don't think we're going to see like Jane Foster continuing on. But remember, we have different wielders of different hammers. Stormbreaker was with Beta Ray Bill. We have different versions of the hammer and things like that to be given to other people who are worthy. It's not necessarily have to be Mjolnir. And to your point, talking about, making the Thor character joke, in Endgame, what I tell people is that I totally understand. Yes, Thor is a very different portrayal than it is in the comics. And I know you've acknowledged too that, Hemsworth has said he has a much more fun time playing Thor than he used to in the first two movies. He understands it, but he was getting a little frustrated with the character. So he likes this direction. But in Endgame, we're dealing with a Thor that is dealing with his own post-traumatic stress disorder.
I get that part of it. Yeah.
And so, that's how that's coping with it. Yes, it came off silly at that point, but I can definitely see past it in the sense of this is a guy that's deeply in pain and doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. With Endgame, I get that. I'm more just, let's talk about Ragnarok. Like I feel like with Ragnarok, he was more of a punch bag. Endgame, he did have some funny stuff, but Thor can have funny stuff and be okay. Mm-hmm. But he was a lot more serious in Endgame, especially after certain points than he was, in any of Ragnarok.
True. Yeah. Ragnarok. Yes. That was a big departure for the character. And you're right. I think there are people on both aisles. Like my wife my wife especially loves Ragnarok. Yeah. She has one of her favorite MCU movies. But to your point, you and I know Nathan, you're not the biggest fans because that's not the Thor you like to see. You want to see it's okay to be funny, but not that kind of humor. And maybe again, she'll say it's big and silly. Maybe he's going to dial it back just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And find a good balance at that point. Again, if you watch the movie Jojo Rabbit, I think that's a very good movie for where he strikes the balance between drama and humor.
Didn't that movie win a lot of awards too?
He won. I believe he won for screenwriting. I don't want to.
Maybe it was up for a lot of awards. I can't remember.
Yes, it definitely was. It was definitely up for Best Picture at one point last year, and Academy Award. Let's see.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I don't, like I said, the Ragnarok's a good movie. I don't mind Ragnarok. I've watched it a few times.
Best adapted screenplay.
Okay. Watched it a few times. I'm not knocking the directing or the acting. I just didn't like the direction they went with it. I'm glad they reeled it back in a little bit for the movies following. And I hope that they don't end up, casting it way out there again. So, and with Natalie Portman saying it's silly, we'll have to see what happens. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be. I think maybe they've heard people complain about that, and maybe they'll take heed of that. But at the same time, I want him to have his vision. I don't want him to fold to what fans say, because there were a lot of people that, like you said, like your wife, that love Ragnarok. So he wasn't necessarily wrong by doing that. It just wasn't one of those things that everybody loved. It. Everybody is on one side or the other.
Yeah, and the idea that Guardians, we accept that is a funny movie. It is meant to be, more humorous at that point. But like you said, we'll just have to see. So we'll wait and see. Yeah. Next couple of hits, we gotta we get more Spider-Man news. After all these ideas and hints that is it starting? It's starting production. Well, we got a lot of hits all back like the next few days. Like first we got news that we see Tom Holland is, we get our first screenshots of him playing the main hero in the Uncharted movie based on the video game. We see him look very uncanny, look like Nathan Drake's pose at that point. Mm-hmm. And he went on his father's Patreon show and kind of hinted at the idea that as soon as they wrap Uncharted, he's heading to Spider-Man. Not necessarily saying it, but hinting at it.
Right.
Well, the next day or two later, we see him post onto his Instagram saying, okay, so we just landed in Atlanta and it's time for Spider-Man 3. Let's go.
Wow.
Later on, we see him in his apartment and basically saying that, if he's showing the iPad, he said, on this iPad, I've got the script for Spider-Man 3 that the threequel will take roughly 5 months. And he kind of jokes around and said, kind of learned my lesson. I got to be protective of this. And he almost looks like he almost breaks the iPad at one point. And, so filming is starting. Okay. And, we got later on that Zendaya is also reported in for filming with her Instagram post. So, and, the actor who plays Ed, who has lost an incredible amount of weight. Have you seen those photos of the actor who plays Ned?
No, I haven't.
He was one of the first to arrive in Atlanta, and And I think prior to that, he's posted on his social media of like where he's looked at. He has lost an amazing amount of weight. He looks awesome. I mean, and so it'll be interesting to see time passing on that. But Spider-Man 3, we're getting ready to happen, and this non-acknowledgement of Jamie Foxx in it, we're probably going to start seeing maybe some set photo leaks of them starting filming. So,
photo leaks are always fun.
The Batman knows nothing about photo leaks, right?
Yeah.
What's your level of excitement for this with all the news we've been talking about the last few weeks of building around this movie with Doctor Strange, Electro, the possibility of maybe this multiverse coming into Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm. It's Spider-Man. Forever and always will be one of my favorite characters. Give me more. I like every version of Spider-Man I've seen on screen. There are, obviously things you like and you dislike about certain movies, and different directions they could have gone. But I've seen every character I've seen or every portrayal I've seen of Spider-Man I've really enjoyed. Tom Holland's doing a great job. I'm excited to see this movie forward in the future, and I'm hoping that he's going to be a bigger part of the MCU. As far as just a main character in there, and a guy who I kind of want to see it be a Robert Downey Jr. or an Iron Man, behind all the scenes and kind of involved in every type movie. Because for me, that's kind of the way Spider-Man is in the Avengers. I mean, he's an Avenger, and I want to see him as an Avenger and be kind of a leader to the Avengers. They've nailed the castings on all these parts.
Yeah,
they got to work on the names. I'm sure this name's going to have home something in it. Homesick, home stew, home something.
Oh, Brent's dying on his hill with Can't Go Home Again. I've heard Home Invasion. We'll see
Bound,
exactly.
Home Alone. I mean, they could do all kinds of stuff. So
do all kinds of stuff. This is an interesting character because I know I did a fact or fiction in the sense of I believe, this is going to be Tom Holland's time as Spider-Man. I hope and want not to be done in the MCU.
Right. I agree.
Because this is just we've come 3 movies in. At the end of this movie, this is where I see him finally becoming really ingrained into what he needs to do as Peter Parker. Again, we got Far From Home. He's still learning. He's hit his kind of like, what do you need to do? You're not meant to be Tony. You're meant to learn from him and be better than him, and you're different. That's okay. As Happy gives him this pep talk. This is the movie where, okay, playtime's over. Are you going to be the hero we need, or are you just playing a hero?
Right.
And that's when we see at the end of that movie, we're going to get our hopefully new trilogy of our Spider-Man. He is fully in that role.
I would very much enjoy that, and I think that with Tom Holland is a great character or a great actor to play that role in the future. I think that I'd like to see him. Maybe let's see him as the next maybe 2.5 phases as Spider-Man, as Peter Parker, and then start to have him work a transition into the next Spider-Man. You don't have to wait till the complete 2 phases are in there, but when he does leave, I want it to be a situation of him passing the mantle of Spider-Man on to a Miles Morales.
Yes.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to see that. Introduce that character that way. That way you can have him in the world before you get rid of Tom Holland. But eventually, Tom Holland's going to get older. It's. I mean, he's still young, but you're gonna want a new Spider-Man. And I want to see Miles Morales on there. So if I see Tom Holland leave as Spider-Man, I want it to be passing the mantle on to somebody. Yeah, I don't want to just be cut out, cast a new character. We're gonna bring in a new character for this and not explain it at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's still Tom Holland's time in Spider-Man there's still so much I want to see with his character, and I want to, obviously, like with you, I want to see Miles. I don't want them to kill off Tom Holland's character. I do not want to see that. We have not spent enough time to see him really being this role of Spider-Man, and we've seen him grow. Again, I want to see him now fully be the hero of Spider-Man. He can still have, I'm not saying he's got to be perfect, because Spider-Man is far from perfect, but again, my respect, he's one of my favorite Marvel heroes. There's so much more to do with this character than just kill him off because it's the end of the first trilogy. So
I agree.
But all right, our last story is we go from beginning production on a lot of stuff to ending of production. Marvel's Shang-Chi has officially wrapped filming. This took me really by surprise when I saw this. because we had just started restarting filming, and to be fair, we didn't know how much filming had actually got done, but I thought there was a lot more, and they were finishing sets in Australia, and also we got some word that they were doing a lot of filming in San Francisco. Well, last Friday, Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, has officially wrapped principal photography. Director Destin Daniel Cretin made the announcement on Instagram account saying, "We wrapped." And so filming had been placed on a hiatus after the director had to quarantine himself and cast and crew in Australia, with COVID at that point. The main actor who plays Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, also commented on the wrapping. He said, "Ohana means family, wrapped means wrap." But then he went on later on and he shared a social media post celebrating it. And he said, the actor voiced his excitement for the project, noting that the film is funny. This is what he says. That's a wrap on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. 9 months from now, we will break records and make history as the first superhero movie to feature an all-Asian cast that kicks so much ass, it's not even funny. Well, that's a lie. It's actually quite funny, too. For all of us who have hated the color of our skin, or have been made to feel less than because of it, no more. This is our movie, and it will be impossible for Hollywood to ignore us after this. I'll see you then, but probably sooner, actually, because I'm always on here. Let's effing go.
Let's go.
So, this is very interesting because we have only heard 3 cast members announced for this movie.
Yeah.
We've searched Simu Liu, who is our Shang-Chi, Tony Leung as the real version of the Mandarin, and Awkwafina, her real name is Nora Loom, as an undisclosed female lead. Hopefully, with the filming completing production, we'll start to get official stills of that idea. But I mean, this is another big movie. This is a Black Panther-like movie, in the sense of it is a Shang-Chi. We all say, wow, this is like a deep pull in Marvel history for doing a Shang-Chi movie, and we get our true look at the Mandarin, our real Mandarin. We get to see an all Asian cast and an Asian production at that point. The idea of comparing it to a Bruce Lee type of character. But that's awesome. That's how exciting he is at this point, showing that thing. I mean, again, I'm in the idea of just seeing a basically what many people don't really know who Shang-Chi is. These movies get me excited because I'm not as familiar with the character. I mean, I love Marvel comics, but this is on my reading list. There's a lot of history to this character. So
yeah, I'm the same exact way, man. Heard of the character, never read anything about it, never got any kind of knowledge about what's going on with it. I'm not excited for this at all. Not saying that it's going to be bad, or I don't think it's going to, but I haven't looked up anything about it. When I first heard news of it coming out, I was like, okay, when it comes out, I'll see it. I'm hoping this is going to be like my Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, is one of my absolute favorite. I think it's like number 3 for me on my list. I got to go back and check. It's definitely top 5. Went into it not expecting it to be good. Didn't know anything about it. I was like, all right, I'll give this a chance and see. It's the only MCU Blu-ray that got like hard digital, or not digital. I own a lot of digital ones, but I like hard disc that I own is Guardians of the Galaxy. Absolutely fantastic movie, and I'm hoping that this does that for me. So I'm going into it with no expectations, no knowledge of what's happening in the future.
The best type to go into. That's a great way to go
MCU.
into it.
They haven't failed me yet. Like, so
a little bit. They failed you a little bit.
But it's still it's an okay movie. It's just it's not as good as
your thing.
I think. Yeah, exactly. Not my thing. Which is funny enough because I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 1, which I absolutely love. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is probably my least favorite MCU movie. Like I said, not a terrible movie, just wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't like it nearly as much. It's not as memorable for me. I'm not gonna go back and watch it. I think I tried to watch it the first 4 times and fell asleep the first 4 times I tried to watch it. It took me a fifth time to watch it all the way through. Now, there may have been alcohol involved in that, so I can't blame it all on the movie. No. But there's generally alcohol involved when I'm watching something, so that's nothing to say. But I'm going into this no expectations, no preconceived notions of what's going to happen. I don't know any characters. I don't I just want to go into it and enjoy it and come out and be like, wow, that was impressive.
Yeah,
Really
and
like
that's what
that, and that's what I'm hoping for.
That's what I'm looking for those moments, especially the young Asian children, either Asian American or just Asian children doing what happened with like what happened with Black Panther. Just seeing them, oh my gosh, I see a character on the screen, a superhero on the screen. You know, I love those moments. I'm on sap. What can I say? All right, so that's all the news. Again, not much news at all, right?
We were on DC last night. We had so much news; it was insane. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta get it out there. Gotta let them know."
Exactly. So, all right. So we got a. I'm gonna pull up the factor. We're gonna read some as I start pulling up factor fictions. We got a few listener questions to answer.
Okay.
We're gonna start off with our illustrious co-host on the network, Katie. Her question is: any recommendations on wine? I did ask for questions. I didn't say Marvel specific, so she took me literally.
It's a great question.
Yes.
I was never a person who drank wine a lot until I got into college. I went to culinary school, so naturally I had to learn about wines and flavor complexities and all kinds of different stuff that go with foods. Worked at a few different wine bars and ended up starting to love wine. So it depends on if you're talking about a white or a red. I'm going to give you a good red recommendation is Tobacco Road Cab or Cabernet Sauvignon. It's an Australian wine. It's absolutely fantastic. It's leathery. It's kind of cherry. It's just so good, so rich, so deep. That's one of my favorite red wines. But I think me and Chris were talking about beforehand. You can pretty much go with any kind of red wine, man. Give me a Shiraz or a Malbec or
I won't go that far.
Oh, I love a good Pinot too, like blackberries and oh my gosh, so good. So but Pinot's a little more sweet. Pinot Noir is a little more sweet. So for me, anything red.
Yes, and I will agree with Clay. Listen to Grapes and Capes. They talk about comics and drinking wine. Yes, it is a great podcast at that point. I will recommend Red Skull. It is no, that's not actual wine at that point. So good, makes it feel like you're doing something bad. No, what I'll say is a wine called Behringer. It's a red that is made within the used bourbon barrels. It's a bourbon wine at that point, so it's got a nice kind of a burning, not like a bad burning, but it got some heat to it at that point. Not like a spice, just got some heat to it, and that comes from being made in old bourbon barrels. So you can definitely find that at your Harris Teeters. So it's a great wine. So this has been Wine Chat with Marvel Alliance at that point. But check out Grapes with Capes.
Definitely check that out. Hey, Katie, if you want a good white wine, if you like something really sweet, you want a good dessert wine, it's called Marco Negre. It tastes like cider, like grape or white grape juice. I mean, you could literally drink the whole bottle in 5 minutes. It tastes so good. I'm not, like I said, a huge wine or sweet drinker, but that's one I remember from college. It's really, really good. Probably have to go to Total Wine for that one. I don't think it's too expensive. It's a dessert wine. Marco Negre. Check that one out.
And Travis Snell says also joining the Geek Ultimate Alliance in 2021, Wine Alliance after Pizza Alliance. Both hosted. Pizza Alliance definitely is probably going to be hosted by Snell at that point, unless he hasn't found any more podcasts that he can put in with his free time.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So our next question comes from Clay. We've heard Hulk being connected to She-Hulk, Captain Marvel connected to Miss Marvel, who will be connected to Moon Knight. I will say Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange is a great pairing at this point, considering, mysticism and his connection to the Egyptian gods at that point. I think that would be a great connection.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would be better than that. That's a really good pairing. I think they're going to be moving forward. Doctor Strange is a bigger character in the future. So of the MCU and the movie slate. So, what a great way to introduce them and have them kind of partner up. I agree.
Sorry, I'm writing in the chat. They're having a debate now, looking at pineapples on pizza. So I said the ultimate third rail of pizza pairings.
Pineapple does not go on pizza, y'all.
And again, proving my point. And then our last question comes from Tony. Who do you think will appear first? Dakin or Gabby? So do you know who either one of those two characters are, Greg?
I do not.
All right. Well,
Off the top.
they're from our favorite X-Men Wolverine. They have very big ties to him. And I'll talk about
Okay.
Dakin first. His real name is Akirhu. Excuse me. Akirhuru. I'm going to really butcher the name, but known as Dakin. He is the son of Wolverine and his Japanese wife, Itsu, in 1946. In 1946, Itsu, while late stages of pregnancy, was murdered by the Winter Soldier in an attempt to draw Wolverine out and return him to the custody of Madripoor. After Itsu's death, Romulus took the baby, cutting him from his mother's womb and leaving her body behind. The baby survived, has the mutant abilities of Healing Factor. He does have 3 claws, 2 that come out of his knuckles and 1 that comes out of his forearm at that point. So there is a very long history of Dakin in this. So he is the blood son of Wolverine, necessarily a nemesis at that point. Mm-hmm. Gabby, also known as Gabrielle Kinney, is one of at least 10 clones of Wolverine. So very similar to Laura, or the all new Wolverine, or X-23, as she's also known as, the youngest of the sisters, created by Alchemix Genetics. And the project, looking at, much like Laura before them, they were often abused by their handlers. So again, a clone of Wolverine has definitely, at least if I remember correctly, 1 claw popping out of her knuckles at that point. I'm not as closely familiar with her, but I got the reference at that point. So in my mind, first we need to see X-23 first before we see either one of these characters. I see, if it is, we're going to see X-23. I would like to see Dakin. I think bringing Gabby in before, like, you could maybe make a Easter egg to Gabby, bringing X-23. At that point, I don't see her becoming a big thing, but I definitely want to see Dakin at that point. So, but I don't know how much comment.
Cooler than Gabby.
It does at that point.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If we already have X-23, who is also another clone of Wolverine, X-23 is the bigger one. So I say Gabby gets thrown off like an Easter egg, but Dakin may have a bigger role. Or Dakin. I think it's gonna be Dakin.
One claw. That's like what the Mortal Kombat carry, Baraka or Baraka, whatever.
That was a huge one too.
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's either Dakin or Dakin. I think I'm going with Dakin, but yeah, look up the history. You've got a very long history to look up with him.
Okay.
But all right, those are our questions. So let me get to Factor Fictions before we get to your Factor Fictions, Greg.
Okay.
Our first one from last week with Katie, we will see a Star Wars Marvel crossover in streaming or movie at some point. Fact, 32%, fiction, 68%, some comments. Some of them were Brent. I wish this had a time scale. I don't think we will live in live action for the next 10 years. Animated, maybe. I thought about the idea of bringing in the Lego, since we have Lego Star Wars Holiday Special coming. Tony said can see it in comics within 3 years, animation within the next 4 to 5. So a lot of ideas. The Pop Culture Cafe said yes, but hopefully either way they do it well or not at all. So where do you stand on that one?
I don't want that. I don't want to see it. No, I love Marvel. I love MCU, but not Marvel. I love Marvel. I love Star Wars, but no, I don't want to see it. There's so much within both of those franchises. There's so much untold stuff you can do. Just no. For me, definitely not. I don't think it'll ever happen, and I don't think if it did happen, it would be good. Otherwise, you would have already seen something like that. I don't think you cross over the big franchises like that. Like, you have some situations where you have superhero crossover into different things, like Batman and Turtles, stuff like that. But you're not going to have Batman and Iron Man go out on an adventure. I mean, I guess they have before. What's the one comic you said that they crossed over? You mentioned one, said I'd never ever see a copy of that again not Batman and Iron Man, but Marvel and DC crossover.
Marvel and DC, yeah, Avengers versus JLA.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll never see a reprinting of that.
I just don't mess with my Star Wars with Marvel. Not that Marvel's bad. Don't mess with my Star Wars with Marvel. It's already been Disney-fied. Let's not Marvel-fy it as well.
Hey, we did have, DC had Green Lantern and Star Trek. That was an awesome pairing.
Yeah. So. Well, that's actually okay. Anyway. Yeah. Anything.
Don't knock it till you tried it.
That's right. That's true. Flintstones, Jetsons. It was a success. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. Our second one, Dormammu will return in the MCU. 79% fact, 21% fiction. I definitely was fact on this. Dormammu is too big of a character with Doctor Strange. So,
and he was gone too quickly, at the beginning of the first movie. crazy. You can have such a big bad guy as a floating giant head be a bad guy at the end of his first movie. Crazy to think that, isn't it?
Crazy,
Anyway.
Absolutely crazy at that point. A little fart cloud going on, right?
Yeah. Listen to Patreon exclusive there. So.
Okay, so Brent, I want you to note possibly we are, at least on my track, we're looking at an hour and 45 minutes of when that was coming up. You'll know what I'm talking about, Brent.
Oh, what, me referencing Green Lantern? Because he was definitely referencing the movies.
He thought, yeah. I think I have to go back to the chat, but I think it was going to be much earlier at that point.
When you bring, yeah. I like
that's yeah, exactly. All right, our last factor fiction of the week for last week. Mystique will be less prominent in the MCU. X-Men fact, 90% fiction, 10%. I think I was also fact. I think she's going to be a part of it, but I think we'll see her back, but not in a bigger role like she was.
Fact. I agree with you there too. That's why I'd vote on at least. I don't think they're going to have a huge actress playing the role, or not a well-known actress playing the role, or at least as big as God, what's her name? Not Rebecca Romaine, the one who played the young.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah. I don't think you'll have a character like that, but she will be there. It's just be in the background. I don't think it'll be a headliner. I think they're going to go with new X-Men to focus on for this new version, which they should.
Yeah,
lots of X-Men get lots of really. I'd love to see Storm be a leader of the team, be a huge character. Like, it'd be awesome. So see what happens.
Yep. Well, good. Well, all right, Greg, you're the guest. You bring on the factor fictions. Hit me.
All right. I got 3 of them here for you. One of them is going to be that in the Falcon Winter Soldier show, there will be I don't know how I'll put this, a semi-major to major character death.
Okay. I'm going to go fact on this because, as you said, it could be a bigger supporting part or a main part. I don't see it being Bucky or Falcon at this point. I don't see it being Sam or Bucky. Could it be Sharon Carter? Yes. I could definitely see Sharon biting it in this one because, why not? But yeah, I definitely see the potential for that. So I'm going to go with fact on this.
Okay. I'm going with fact on it too. I talked to, or I mentioned it to you before about this, where I believed one thing, and as I started reading more articles about what's going on, I
you're going to talk yourself out of it.
I talked myself out of it, and I was like, well, this actually could happen. And it seems very plausible for me, especially with, we referenced the graveyard scene earlier in Falcon Winter Soldier. There's another guy that's going to be Captain America that is not well liked, that is placed there by the government. Personally, I think that might be a character that bites the dust. And it's one of those situations where it's like, well, this is why so-and-so should have been Winter Soldier, or we should take up the mantle instead of this guy, or you take control of it. There's a lot of different ways you go, but I think it's a fact. I think it'll happen.
Yeah. So. Okay, cool. What's your next one?
Moon Knight will not be on the big screen. He will be a television exclusive only character.
I will say fiction on that, particularly because of our casting of Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
I think is what I'll say. I'm hoping. Yes, it is Kevin Feige. It is the MCU. If this takes off as another surprise hit of a character that not many people have background on, but Oscar Isaac and the storytelling do really well, I could see, again, this has been a debate back and forth, the amount of homework people have to do in order to bring it into film. To bring Moon Knight into film, you're going to have to do just a little bit of homework at that point in order to do it. Why not get some people joining Disney Plus? That's how you cook them. Yeah. But I do think even before the casting, I'll even take the casting out of it. I think Moon Knight is our beginning of hopefully a Midnight Suns team up movie and or streaming show. But yes, I think Moon Knight can fit into the movies. I don't know where yet. He's not an Avenger necessarily. I don't see him as Avenger. That's what I'm saying. If we're going to do a team up, we're going to do the Midnight Suns, Blade, Ghost Rider, bring them all on. Daredevil,
Knight and Wolverine together, teamed up.
That'd be great. Hey, there we go. I that would be a very interesting team up. I don't know. It depends on the personalities he's bringing onto that idea. That's another thing about Moon Knight. We forgot to mention. Bringing in the idea of split personalities. This is a very delicate issue that Marvel also has to acknowledge and treat very, very, carefully. I hope they have to bring this out and talk about mental illness. There's like WandaVision is going to discuss mental illness. Olsen has gone on record and saying that they are going to tackle the idea of mental illness. So you kind of have to with what the show's dealing with. But I'm curious about how much are they going to be dealing with that idea of mental illness. This is Moon Knight is another show. They're going to have to look at mental illness, and they need to acknowledge it. They can't ignore it, but they also have to bring it with respect.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I'm the same way. The question was, or the statement was, he will not be on the big screen. I'm on your part with this. I think because of the casting, he will be. The only argument I can make that he might not would be because it's Disney Plus. It's not, sorry, Travis, DCCW. You know, I mean, we've seen the stuff Disney Plus has put out. Just take The Mandalorian. That's movie quality stuff right there. And I feel like he will be, maybe he won't have his own movie, but he can be part of the movies. And I think his storyline will be more, the bulk of what you get for him will be the television shows, because you can flesh out a character so much better over 10 hour long episodes than you can over a 2.5 hour movie or 2 hour movie. And I think he eventually will make some kind of appearance in the movies, but I think his main focus will be on television on Disney Plus.
And I stand corrected. Travis Snell's got me. Moon Knight was a West Coast Avenger, so could be. I stand corrected. Okay. I definitely forgot about that. I think I like him more as the loner than, but again, if he's going to be on a team, it's got to be the right team. And even still, West Coast Avengers was just like, yeah, sure, we'll go with that. I just don't see him being the team player. But, you know, Wolverine necessarily wasn't a team player, and he's on the X-Men. So,
true.
You know, there is a part for non-team players on teams. Too. Yes, and an Avenger.
Yeah, so. All right. My third one, MCU will use time travel again in the movies.
Well, I think that's a big fact. It's what we call time travel or traveling dimensions. Are we talking about time travel or?
Well, I don't mean dimensions, because I think dimensions and time travel are two different things, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I mean more like what they had in Endgame. I think that it's, you know, it's like a drug, man. Once you do that time travel that one time, you kind of want to do it again. And especially now that they have the technology to do it, I don't think it'll be something they do on the regular, like you see it all the time. I think that at some point in time, someone's gonna be like, hey, we have this problem here. You remember that time we went back in time and we did that thing? We should do that again, and it'll happen.
Well, I say yes, just because we're having Kang involved. Time travel's happening.
Oh, that's a good point.
Again. Yeah. So yeah. So I say that's definitely a fact.
Okay. I didn't even think about Kang being in there. I forgot about this conversation with that character. Yeah, you're right. That probably is definitely a fact then.
Yeah, we got the quantum realm, and so it's our gateway to time travel. Then yeah, we're definitely having it. Okay. So, all right. So we'll put those out there. Let listeners letting you know what your takes on those are. And so we are going to go to our previously recorded continuation of Cosmic Ghost Rider #2 that Travis and I did earlier this week. So if you aren't a patron at that point, you're going to hear this for the first time. But again, another plug for our Patreon. You could get this early at that point, an early drop, seeing our thoughts. So the wild ride of Cosmic Ghost Rider continues. Tossing it to you, past Chris and Travis. All right. So, well, as always, Cosmic Ghost Rider, always a crazy time. So you can't go wrong with that. Frank Castle as a Ghost Rider. Come on. That's an awesome combo.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, that's Marvel Alliance 22. You know, we've gone past, we now drink legally at that point. So now we have to look forward to driving, by being able to rent a car at that point. So I think that's 25. So we got a few more episodes till we do that. And then everything's downhill from there, right?
Well, life goes downhill after that, you know, after you hit that last marker. So.
Yeah, but yeah, we had a lot of news. Again, Greg, I appreciate you crossing universes and joining us at that point. I know when you came on for our Chadwick Boseman's looking back at his life, we said we wanted to have on to a quote unquote normal episode of Marvel Alliance. So I do appreciate you coming back on and bringing your thoughts at that point. Always a good time.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. You know, it's always a great listen, and you know, I talk to you guys pretty much every day about most of this stuff anyway. So it's just being able to fit it in the schedule worked out great. So it happened to be, I usually record Tuesday nights on the C3 Panthers podcast. I didn't watch the game on Sunday because it was went on an anniversary trip this weekend, so I didn't get a chance to watch the game. So
priorities.
Yeah, well, this was a perfect time to be able to do it on a show where I couldn't really talk about the game. So, and y'all, you needed some help. So, hey, let's do it. So it worked out great. And thanks for having me, man. It's always, like I said, always a good time.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Travis says thank you as well. Clay said you said you wanted me back on the episode, and then I joined the network. Yes, yeah. There we go. Just takes a little bit of a carrot at that point. But no, thank you again, and definitely we'll have you back on very soon as well. And we'll be seeing you later this week on SES. So
yes, sir.
All right. So again, thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of Marvel Alliance. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. Me personally at Chris Balga. You can follow Travis Snell at Travis B Snell. You can email the show at Marvel Alliance Podcast at gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet or email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions, give your fact or fictions, comment on what we're saying, and saying how crazy we are with our hot takes on this. And as always, continue to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcast or whichever podcatcher of choice you listen to your casts on. Thank you again, listeners. Thank you. I appreciate you, Travis, joining in for your Moon Knight discussion. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, listeners. Thank you to everyone in the chat that joined us live tonight. We had a great crew. And as always, listeners, as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers.
Keep pounding.
All right. And